Good morning, everyone. Mr. Happy here, and in this video, we're going to be talking about the letter from the producer live number 50. I say good morning because it's about 5:45 in the morning, and I couldn't sleep anymore, so I figured I'd get up and record this. Luckily, for something to do at 5:45 in the morning here in Japan, live letter 50 was not a very in-depth live letter, and personally, this was kind of expected. We already knew the majority of the content that was going to be coming before Stormblood. We got a little bit more clarity on the actual schedule of the release content, including the release date of the Final Fantasy XIV and Final Fantasy XV collaboration. And then they spent the majority of the time interviewing Banri Oda. Oda-san is the main world lore builder and main scenario writer. So all that lore that you love, he's behind it. And while it was an interesting interview for those looking for more details about certain aspects of the expansion, I can totally understand why this may not have been that thrilling of a live letter. There are also some various announcements at the end, but let's just get into it, shall we? I'm going to be using my own Twitter feed here since I was taking pictures of the event live, and as you can see, they always like to start things off with a bang. The stage was fantastic at the JP Fan Fest. So, letter from the producer live, part L. For the most part, they just talked about a few basic things at first. I actually skipped the first couple of tidbits, reminding us of when the European world visit is going to be, reminding us that patch 4.56 is this coming Tuesday, March 26th, which I've said in a ton of videos at this point, and is going to contain the finale of the Stormblood story, the patch 4.5 part 2 story. It's going to contain the Allied Beast Tribe quests, the Stormblood ones, and it's going to contain the finale of Hildebrand for this expansion, which should in turn come with the Yojimbo trial that we've been experiencing at the various fan fests that I myself had the pleasure of playing at North America. That's March 26th. We have the first world visit for Europe, not world visit, the data center expansion for Europe on April 3rd, with, of course, the 2 weeks of free transfers for those people looking to transfer around the European servers. We finally got a date on the Final Fantasy XIV and 15 collaboration, and honestly, the date doesn't surprise me. They said mid-April is what they were aiming for. Tuesday, April 16th is when we can enjoy it. What was more surprising is it is a limited time collaboration. It will only be available from Tuesday, April 16th to Monday, May 27th. So what that immediately tells me is that it probably isn't to the same caliber that Rathalos was, or that the Monster Hunter collaboration was, because odds are they wouldn't make a very extensive trial that needs to be repeated a truckload of times in order to actually obtain it. He did say that the various rewards, specifically the regalia, that it wouldn't be super easy to obtain, but you wouldn't have to go and do anything as extensive as like the Yokai Watch event. So he specifically used the number 400 fates. So don't expect to have to do 400 fates. The rewards are going to be Noctis's equipment, his hairstyle, and the 4-player mount, the regalia. So those of you who are worried if you were going to have to buy the regalia, you won't, but you will have to earn it via the collaboration event. They showed another picture of the mount in case you haven't seen it or you haven't played Final Fantasy XV. And yes, again, it is a 4-person mount. And then you can see here the equipment and the hairstyles on a Lalafell and a Makote. Now, for some reason, it doesn't show me going any further than that, because that was probably all I said about the early parts. So the World Visit update will be coming the same day as the North American data center expansion. World Visiting will allow you to visit other servers, digitally go to them with your character, with some limitations, but it'll allow you to do things like treasure maps or hunts across other servers, or even just visit your friend's house who may be on another server on the same data center. So it's a feature I'm very much looking forward to as an avid treasure map user. I will probably make a video about treasure maps so people who don't usually utilize them decide maybe they can now with the world visiting system. So as I said, that's the same day as the North American data center expansion. The new data center crystal will be added and everything will be distributed. And then there will be free transfers available until May 6th for anyone who's looking to move around once the data center expansion actually happens. 4.58 is going to be taking place in mid-May, so usually it means the second or third Tuesday. And that's going to have various adjustments and updates. Now, they're very vague about this, but for those of you who are new to the expansion, that usually means they raise the amount of tomestones that you can earn in a week from 450 to 900. They remove all weekly restrictions, such as the ones on the 24-man raids, the crystalloids from the normal mode 8-man raids, and the savage mode loot lockouts. So there's other potentials, such as buffing drop rates for certain mounts that may not have had their buff rates dropped yet, specifically the primals, of course. And other than that, There's no real telling what could be in there. Probably more Eureka nerfs as well, for those of you who may be still looking to complete a collection, earn more of them, or whatever it is you may be trying to do. And other than that, then it's early access June 28th, and then launch on July 2nd. And that was it. That's pretty much the entire content aspect of the live letter. It was very short and very jarring. They said it was because they had a lot of announcements for other stuff that weren't directly related to the game. And we already know that we are getting several live letters leading up to the expansion's launch. The big one you're going to be looking out for is in May. And in May, they're going to be talking about job adjustments. We've only heard one tidbit so far about those, and it's that black mages in particular, excuse me if it feels like I'm delaying all this time, are going to be getting quite a few new abilities. Now, that doesn't really mean anything. That could mean they are getting the same amount of new abilities as everyone else. It could mean an extensive rework of the way that Black Mage functions now as well. So now people are on edge a little bit about Black Mage. I'm personally just assuming they're going to get a few new abilities, and that's just their way of communicating it. So other than that, they did a large... Oh, also, that's right, I almost forgot this. So this is an actual visualization of the schedule. He said there's things that aren't on here, such as the benchmark, for example, which I believe he said would be in May. Again, the benchmark allows you to download a client that represents the expansion. It lets you access the character creator for the new races, Hrothgar and Viera, and lets you make the character in advance. You can save it, and you can bring it with you when the expansion comes out if you want to change your character's appearance or make a new character overall. So expect that to be coming as well, and of course we'll be producing content on the benchmark, going over the character creator for the new races, as well as taking a look at the actual benchmark trailer, little tidbits we can find, which aren't usually very accurate, but we usually actually get our first peek at new skills in a benchmark trailer. Certain new bosses as well, whatever the world boss is going to be, a better look at some of the zones, so it is a very interesting thing to stop and take a look at. And then we had Oda-san come out, and he answered a bunch of questions. I don't really know if you guys want me to go through these, his inspirations, what his actual job is. There are a couple of interesting actual lore details, but the majority of them are about his actual his actual job and things that he's accomplished or some of the favorite things he's worked on. For example, one of his favorite features that they've worked on in this expansion is the roleplay feature which we experienced for the first time in patch 4.4. He loves that now he can maybe focus on telling stories in a new, unique way that he really wasn't trying to in the past. The way we experience Alphino's story, which was generally praised by people who got to do it. I know I definitely enjoyed it. They made some jokes about Yoshida, we can hear him coming down the hall because his boots make a very specific sound. So if he doesn't wear those boots, we get really anxious. So a bunch of cool stuff. Other things he likes to test. In the Namazu questline, there's a part where it splits the camera into 4 different angles and displays them simultaneously. And he says that's something they wanted to experiment with. The Namazu actually had a lot of things that they hadn't done before in cutscenes. If you haven't done them, the Namazu cutscenes are actually pretty fun and pretty funny at the same time. And so they used that as a testing ground, and I'd say it was relatively successful. Now maybe they'll use them in other parts, maybe in the main scenario. We'll just have to wait and see. He generally storyboards stuff in like random hotel rooms and very specific public locations, but he has to be very careful about where he's actually, having those kinds of meetings. One time he even ran into Yoshida at a ramen place when he was trying to go out and, have a meeting and get away from the office. He still found Yoshida. Let's see. And he talks about the variety of characters in 5.0. He said that the game story is very morally gray. Light and dark aren't good and evil. And that's something that FS and I and Sly and I have discussed on State of the Realm a ton. And he echoes that sentiment here. And he said in 5.0, people's morality and what they believe is right is going to be very much put to the test. There's going to be players that hate certain characters. They think they're terrible. Maybe not even just from a moral standpoint, but from an ethical standpoint. I guess it's the same thing. Not just from like a characterization standpoint. Whereas other people are going to love certain characters because they resonate with them more. So they really want to find like a bunch of different characters that connect with a good variety of people so that the players themselves feel like they don't all necessarily believe what they're doing is right or wrong or what side they're on. So it should be a good diverse cast going into 5.0. They also talk about some use of old assets. The Isle of Val is a big one here. It was introduced a while ago, and it really wasn't until they were looking at 5.0 stuff that they really knew what to do. I realized I should probably zoom in on all this. You guys probably could barely even read that the whole time. Luckily, it's just text, so I'm just telling you what it says anyway. So when they decided in 5.0 that they really weren't going to use it, and this was a while ago, they decided they could use it for 4.x, and that's kind of what Yoshida's recommendation kind of is what led it to become what Eureka is now. So there's a bunch of stuff, and honestly, a big thing for them right now is 1.0. Since 1.0, there's been so many things that have just been given to us, and they're just unexplained. They go unexplained for years. And yes, that's a good part of, lore building, leaving mystery. Like, we're still wondering where the remaining 2 children of Midgard's armor are. But at the same time, they kind of want to start tying up the major loose ends, stuff like this, like the Isle of Val, because, they want to be able to have players not have to think 2, 3, 4, even 8 years all the way back to 1.0. They want to be able to very much think about the things that are happening now and look towards the future for those things. So they are looking to tie up a lot of those loose ends. On top of that, somebody even asked about Louis Soix and why he teleported the Warrior of Light 5 years into the future. And he said he didn't really mean, he wasn't like, I'm going to send you 5 years in the future. The spell was kind of just determined to send them to a time that was safe. He didn't really know when it would send them or where it would send them, but he knew that he needed to do it. And it just resulted in a 5-year time jump, pretty much. 5.0 main scenario is almost done. They're still doing a lot of work on the side quests. Lore-wise, they talk about Estinian. A lot of people think he's half dragon now with what happened in Heavensward, but it's actually just, he's actually absorbed so much ether from his experience as Nidhogg for a short time that he's immensely more powerful than he was before. It's why he can do certain things like destroy the cannon in the Stormblood story so effortlessly. He's just gotten that powerful from absorbing so much ether from Nidhogg. They talk about, when characters are used in other games like Ishtola in Dissidia NT, which we'll talk about in a bit actually, and that Oda-san does actually have to approve those and make sure that they're that they're within their character, that their lines and their attitude are representative of their original character. Oda-san has a personal desire to build young Rogadins. How we've seen, child Makote's, child Aura. He wants to see a child Rogadin, but the resource team is very picky about doing that because, the more of them they develop, the more it's basically the equivalent of making a new race in a sense, not entirely because you don't really have to go all the way from concept, but they do have to consider things like how they actually grow, when growth spurts happen. There's a lot of little details that go into determining that. And so he's kind of upset that the Aura and the Makote have how come they're taking my young building resources? He just wants to know what a Roganin child would look like because it's his favorite race. What else do we have here? Symbols on the Scholar and Monk gear from Omega. They may or may not be symbols from his home world. I've seen people discuss this. He says he's leaving it open to interpretation because it makes for better. People's imagination runs a little wild with that stuff. Oh, I had an alarm set for 6 a.m. So now you know what time it is here. The duty finder, stuff like that isn't explained by lore. Your inventory isn't explained by lore. How you carry around all your mounts, minions. He's like, listen, if you're concerned about how you're calling your Chocobo companion with Gazal Grains, just imagine that it's hiding behind a tree somewhere. And then you pull out the Gazal Grains. That's like, yeah, it's time to eat. The New World was brought up. This is the area where the Blue Mage comes from. It's very much representative of a Native American era North America, or United States, I guess, whichever or. And he says that it can be reached. Obviously, people can go to and from, but it's not very easy right now. Yoshida himself says he wants to send the players there someday. One day, the Warrior of Light will probably find an easier way there. The Garlands haven't been able to oppress Eorzea because of their unique skill sets and stuff. And that's kind of where the lore portion of the live letter ended. And then they went into announcements. There was one pretty cool announcement here. Most of them are just reminders. For example, here we have the reminder. You can pre-order Shadowbringers now. You get the Aetheryte Earring for the EXP bonus immediately. You don't have to wait. You just have to follow the instructions. They also said they're coming out with a new album, Journeys, a new musical arrangement that's going to be on sale Wednesday, June 19th. And it's going to have piano arrangements by Kaiko, and it's going to have the band arrangement performance by the Primals, as well as the first editions coming with bonus in-game orchestrion roles. Moving on, though, this was pretty cool. A lot of people have wondered who would be the villain from Final Fantasy XIV to join the cast for Dissidia Final Fantasy. And Final Fantasy XI got theirs. It was Camelot from the Rise of Xylard expansion. And I don't think anyone ever doubted for a second that anyone other than Xenocia Galvis would be one of the top contenders. I've always said it's hard to pick a villain from Dissidia from 14 because you could pick Gaius, the Athians are there, Zodiark is like one of the overarching major threats. There's been so many, but Xenos, I think, embodies the most persistent threat, or one that has been the most foreboding over the player character. I mean, you got to remember, he is the one character that beat us several times throughout the main story. So his ruthlessness and his way of tackling combat and the hunt is very much what inspired him to become the choice for Dissidia Final Fantasy NT. He has 3 different, types of attacks he pulls from. You recognize them from the dungeon where you fight him, the Storm, the Swell, and I can't pronounce the name of the third sword, the one that Susano uses, the Amino something. I think I have it just above this in a different post. But he's going to be a character in Dissidia NT. He's going to be available on arcades this coming Tuesday in Japan, and PS4 and Steam will see him on April 11th. You can see those dates right there. And then there's just a few more screenshots. And then, I didn't even, I retweeted it somewhere. No. Hold on. It's from a different panel altogether, but I really want to know the name of the sword. So we're just going to go through all these real quick. No, that's all dev panel. Where's the, oh, there it is. There we go. So yeah. Xenos possesses the ability to wield 3 divine blades in battle, the Storm, the Swell, and Amino Habakir. There you go. He is able to utilize 3 types of skills at a dizzying frequency. When he lands at least 1 type of each attack, his unique EX skill changes to Storm Swell Sword, which is a powerful HP attack. Despite being a Garlean, he has various magic spells at his disposal, thanks to the power of the Resonant. So I don't play a lot of NT for a number of reasons, but listen. This means he could probably come to Opera Omnia, which is a game I spend a lot more time playing. So we'll just have to wait and see on that one. And then they made another major announcement. For those of you who don't know, there's a TV drama that aired sometime back called The Dad of Light. It's on Netflix currently, and I would highly, highly advise watching it. Even if you're new to 14, if you played it for years, if you haven't seen it, it's a wonderful TV drama about a father and a son and their connection over Final Fantasy 14 and how it helped connect them. And on top of that, there's also a new actor for the father, the person who portrayed the original Dad of Light, Ren Osugi. He passed away a year ago, so Kataro Yoshida was a friend of his and is taking over the role for him for the movie. So that was pretty much the end of it, was the announcement of the movie version of that. They spent quite a lot of time on stage talking and interviewing, but I don't have much coverage on that. That was a live letter number 50. I know everyone's looking for more information about the expansion, but I'm going to have an interview with Yoshida today, and I will be producing a video on that at the soonest point that I can. So I'm hoping to get a little bit more tidbits, questions about, Hrothgar and Viera, obvious ones, Dancer, obvious one, but a couple of other questions as well, certain plans they may have going into the expansion, certain ways they may be approaching certain things. I don't have a lot of time, but I'll do my best to get some more information for you guys. So thank you everyone for watching this video. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. Obviously, as we get closer and closer to Shadowbringers, I'm going to have more and more content to produce for you guys. So thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. And until then, take care.